What if we decided to never abuse drugs and substances? How different would our society and community be? How different would our lives be as young people? What do you think would happen if we had a drug-free society? A society where the youth no longer seek solace in drugs, but would rather confide in those close to them. Over the past 24 months alone, according to a report released by the NIDA, close to 10,000 young adults have lost their lives due to drug-related issues. Would these young souls still be alive today if they said yes to a drug-free society? Your guess is as good as mine. Most of these young people who lost their lives over the past 1 year would still be alive today had they not jolted into the drug and substance abuse menace. Some of the commonly abused drugs like opium, cocaine, and heroin instigate impaired judgments. They push a user to a world of their own where they can no longer reason well and make plausible decisions. They detach one from reality. 60% of teens involved in fatal road accidents in the past 1 year were noted to be under the influence of drugs. This is what drugs could do to you after detaching you from reality. You end up dying painfully and alone simply because you can no longer reason well. Accidents are just the tip of the iceberg. Look at the health-related infections induced by drugs that have sent young people with promising lives into their early graves. Many youths have been affected with diseases like HIV or AIDS and hepatitis B while under the influence of drugs. These are killer diseases that have ravaged many young souls. To what ends should we, as the youth, continue suffering when there is a perfect solution to all of this mess? Can't we simply avoid abusing drugs? According to the former South African president Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon that you could choose to change the whole world. He went on further to elaborate that education is one of the surest ways out of poverty, and yes, it is. But if we continue abusing drugs, would we, as young people, manage to leverage on the numerous benefits of education? Would education still benefit us as we abuse drugs? Is it possible to study and excel in academics while abusing drugs? Well, education is not of many benefits to us while we're abusing drugs. Drug abuse is the #1 killer of academic excellence. It is utterly impossible to concentrate in your studies while abusing drugs. A research done by the World Health Organization noted that drug and substance abuse was the greatest cause of high school dropouts and declining grades in many parts of the world. Once into drugs, a student loses their concentration and interest in education. It normally begins with skipping 1 or 2 classes, then later skipping school, that eventually leads into acute truancy. Once in the acute truancy stage, one has completely lost interest in their studies or education and are on the verge of completely dropping out. We must never allow drugs to do this to us. Drugs must never take education away from us. Drugs have damaged once stable families and destroyed good relationships between family members. Do you think your parents are comfortable whenever you're abusing drugs? Do you think your siblings and parents would be elated seeing you sink into depression and eventually drop out of school because of abusing drugs? No, they would never be happy to see your life go wasted. Nyambura Gichini argues that parents spend a lot of money taking their kids through rehab centers in an attempt to beat drug abuse and addiction. Some of these expenses incurred by parents have led families into bankruptcy as they try to save one individual that they love so much. Parents have been driven into depression by the woes that their children undergo once they start abusing drugs. Parents feel so much pain once they lose their kids to drugs. It is this pain and stressful situation that those close to you are subjected to when you jolt into the drug menace that leads to the destruction of families. Would you really want to see your family torn apart because you could not resist abusing drugs? Would you want your family to go hungry because all the money has been spent on your rehabilitation programs? Well, the solution lies within your reach. Choosing to abuse drugs is your personal choice. The effects of drug and substance abuse among young people have been scary. Young, promising lives have been lost to the menace due to drug-related infections and activities. The high school dropout rate in many countries is attributed to drug and substance abuse. Families have been destroyed as a result of young people abusing drugs. Families have gone bankrupt trying to save their young ones from abusing drugs. Indeed, the effects of drug and substance abuse are scary, but the choice is completely at our disposal. We have to make that tough decision of either jolting into drugs or saying no to drugs and working toward a drug-free society. In my view, we could and should work towards a drug-free society.